In this worksheet called underlining, we're already seeing some examples of underlining, and there are actually 4 kinds. We want to talk about those in this movie, as well as some related features: superscript, subscript, and strikethrough. These are all features related to the font group options that we see on the Home tab in the ribbon. We might want to underline these cells right here. We can press Control-U. We also have the convenient U button right here, Home tab in the font group. And we can turn that off. It's what we call a toggle. Notice how the row height is changing as we apply this or take it off. There's also a feature here called double underline. And you'll notice if you're looking over in column F, 2 other features: single accounting, double accounting. And occasionally there's some confusion about what those mean and how they work. And notice something else here too. The line here, the underlining, is extending across the cell, not all the way across, but extending well beyond the width of the number. Over here in columns I and J, I've got essentially the same numbers, but this group has been formatted. This group of numbers here has not been formatted. I'm going to underline these. Control-U I could be using. If I've recently used double accounting, the button we see in the font group here has the D on it. But we can click the drop arrow, choose underline. We see what's happening. Notice how the underlining does not extend beyond the width of the numbers. But these cells have been formatted. Let's apply underlining there. This time maybe I'll do it by way of Control-U. But whether I use Control-U or the U button on the font group, same effect. This time a little different than the numbers to the right. Let me see what's happening. So there is a difference there in how that's being handled. Now, at other times, you might want to consider these other options called single accounting, double accounting. And I'm going to start with some cells here that have no underlining in effect yet. These highlighted right here. And we need to go to Format Cells, that dialog box, to get to these options. You can get there essentially 3 ways. The keystroke shortcut, and very valuable as you're working with formatting tools, is Control-1. It doesn't always necessarily take you to the appropriate tab that you want to get to. In this case, it does, because I've used this recently. So we've got some choices here under underline. Click the drop arrow. Single and double. Also, single accounting and double accounting. Keep an eye on the preview to the right. Here's single. Nothing unusual about that. I want to contrast this with single accounting. Watch the line. It's about to drop a little bit lower below the text. You see what's happening. And the same kind of thing happens with double. There's double and then double accounting. So to get to these 2 features, we use this dialog box here. And we can click OK. I want double accounting there. Let's click OK. We see what's happening. Now, if these have been formatted, and they have been, we could also get to double accounting by using the button that we see up here called double underline. Now, that sounds like I'm almost contradicting myself. Let's suppose I switch to underline for the moment. We see what that looks like. I'll come back. Now I'll try double underline. But that's really applying double accounting. Now, if you weren't sure, you could go back into Format Cells. Remember, Control-1 is a fast way to get there. And what does it say we're doing here? Double accounting. Click the drop arrow. I'll choose double now. Watch the image to the right change. And as I click OK, watch those lines. They changed a bit. It's still double, but now they're closer to the text. So you have to play with that a little bit, get a little bit more comfortable with that idea. Ultimately, you do have the choice of the 4 different kinds of underlining. Now, another feature that occasionally you might need, superscript. Here's Einstein's famous formula. As we would type it in, here's how we want it to look. So what do? Simply type the entry like this, double-click, highlight just the 2, and let's go to Format Cells. Now, earlier I said you can press Control-1. We could certainly do that again. Another way to get to Format Cells is by way of what we call on the font group here, the dialog box launcher. In the font group, and you also see these in the alignment group, number group, little arrow in the lower right-hand corner. So we could go there, and this activates Format Cells with just the font tab being present. And so if we want to use superscript here, that would be the choice we want right there. Superscript and OK. And of course, H2O for water, same general idea here. We can double click in here, highlight the 2, and we could press Control-1 if we wanted to, and do it that way too. Here we want it to be a subscript. Over in row 17 in that list of data over here, we see something called strikethrough. Now, there's a keystroke shortcut for this, but if you didn't know that, and well, how would we get here? Let's go to Format Cells. This time, right-click. That's another way to get to Format Cells. A long menu, but there's Format Cells. And on that font group, if you're not already there on the tab there, we want to use strike through or turn it off in this case. It's an on-off button. Let's turn it off here. Click OK. The keystroke shortcut, maybe when people leave this organization, we don't remove their names just yet. We want to indicate that people have left. We can use the keystroke shortcut or the technique that I just showed you. Control 5. That applies strike through, or Control 5 takes it off. It has no impact whatsoever on the content. No matter what we do with the data here in terms of sorting and rearranging it, that means nothing. It's strictly a visual. So from time to time, you want to use that. So we've seen how to use strike through. We've also seen examples of using subscript and superscript, and we saw some of the various underlying capabilities available in Excel.